This is Anarchast.
Hey Earthlings, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. We have today a unique guest. His name is Chris Murphy, coming in from Prince Edward Island in Canada. And one of the things I always try to do with Anarchast is have as many different types of anarchists on as possible. I think people don't really realize how diverse of a group we are. Of course, we've had on some of the greatest capitalists on earth, like Doug Casey, some of the greatest scholars, and some of the people who have really developed the philosophy of anarchy, like Lew Rockwell, Jeffrey Tucker, Walter Block, many others, Wendy McElroy, and we've had on all kinds of different colors, from Gary Gibson Black to Stefan Molyneux White, and today we're going to have on our first outwardly gay anarchist. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm excellent. Thank you for asking.
I'm glad to hear that. And you told me that coming out as an anarchist was almost as difficult as coming out as being gay. So I want to hear all about that. But first, the first question I always ask is, how did you become an anarchist?
Well, that's an interesting story, because when I first started getting involved in political things, I was actually quite collectivist, because most gay people are, I'll admit, in Canada, fairly far-left socialists. Most of the ones I've come into contact with. So when I first started in political ideologies, I automatically collectivized to what other gay people supported, which was the New Democratic Party, which is our center-left party, and I also supported the Green Party. And I don't know if you know much about the Green movement, but there's a reason that they're usually called watermelons by people who are libertarians. And I sort of collectivized towards that group, because those are the groups that use identity politics and go out there saying, we support gay rights, and they put it front and center in their policy. Whereas other people, like, say, the Libertarian Party, which I'm now actually registered in, even though I am an anarchist, they don't advertise like that, because obviously libertarians, anarcho-capitalists, voluntarists, people who go by the non-aggression principle, obviously don't really care whether you're gay, straight, or a little bit of both. They go by individual rights. So it's not as in-your-face advertised that they support anyone who's peaceful. So it's really identity politics by the left in Canada, and at the start I was right in with them. Then I started reading some more. I started learning more about economics, realizing that the socialists didn't know what they were talking about, that Mises and Hayek and all those wonderful names actually just prove that socialism even worked. I start reading some stuff by the Mises Institute. I actually, for a little bit, even followed the Ron Paul campaign in the United States, and I actually had his book on liberty, which is in it. He mentioned the Mises Institute and free markets, so I read a little bit about that. Till eventually I became a minarchist, and now I'm freed of the religion of statism and completely an anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, anarchist, whatever you want to call it.
Well, that's fantastic. We're glad to have you on board. And so you live out there in probably a place that isn't too conducive to being an outwardly gay person in Prince Edward Island. So what do your people in your social circles think about your political beliefs?
Well, to be honest, people in my social circle are a lot more comfortable with my orientation and my gender non-conforming interests than my political beliefs. I could dress in high heels and do a drag show and they'd be clapping, but if I talked about the state is our enemy, even the enemy of GBLT people, actually I think especially of people who by a lot of people are considered minorities, are actually some of the worst people hurt by the state. Because what the state does is it actually separates people through the monopoly on force. So the gays and the straights and the various groups are fighting over getting access to this monopoly on force to use it against someone else who they fear, even if they never threaten to hurt them, are going to hurt them in the future. So people in my social circle are a lot more accepting of things personally about me than the things that I found through intellectual education of my brain, like being an anarchist and things like that. Um, when if sorry.
No, go ahead.
Um, quite a few, I'll admit it, quite a few of my friends still think I'm a minarchist. I haven't necessarily told them I'm a full-on anarchist. But it pretty much shows. I was on the Ed and Ethan show a couple of weeks ago as one of their panelists. I don't know if you've ever listened to the Ed and Ethan show.
No.
But they are an anarchist libertarian show in Saskatchewan.
Oh, that's great.
Also in Canada. And I was on their show a couple of weeks ago, and the first topic was about how the New York Times was spied on by the Chinese government, and they asked if that was something conducive to all governments spying on their citizens, or if it was just this sort of type of government. And I sort of let my anarchistness show, because the first thing I mentioned was, well, it's a monopoly on force. So the first thing I went to was the what anarchists go to, which is what the state actually is. I didn't even bother trying to defend that some states wouldn't do that. So it sort of shows in some of my answers to people asking me questions about the state, but I never came right out and said it. But yeah, it's a lot. They're very much statist in my social circle, unfortunately, because they are under the false impression that the state is what keeps them safe from the bigots and other people who would hurt them. So they will cling, unfortunately, to the state as their sort of protector. It's just like sort of like what Lysander Spooner said about the government sort of being like a highwayman, because the government says they're the protector of people, especially people who are quote-unquote minorities, and I don't consider myself minority, I'm an individual, but people who are quote-unquote minorities, they feel protected by it, so they want to keep it alive. So yeah, anarchism is not the type of anarchist I am, is not looked upon very well in my circles. Now, if I was a communist anarchist, or a socialist anarchist, or a social anarchist, who was not only against the state, but also against the market and private property and such like that, which there are anarchists out there like that who are completely against any sort of authority, hierarchy of any kind. If I was that type of anarchist, I actually would be accepted, because capitalism is hated around a lot of the social circles I'm in. Capitalism and free markets are blamed for all the bad things in our life, and the state is accused of saving us from those dreaded capitalist pigs who just want to gouge you for all you're worth. So if I was an anarchist that was a socialist or a communist, I actually probably would be welcomed with open arms. But because I'm a market-based anarchist, free market anarchist, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, libertarian, whatever you want to call it, there's so many names for the same thing, it does get frowned upon.
Yeah, it's really too bad. And I guess maybe you should point out to some of the gay people. I have many gay friends, and so, they're always wearing the nicest clothes and all that kind of stuff. That was created by the market. You might want to point that out. Yeah, maybe point out the fashion.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's
point out the fashion in the communist era.
Yeah, actually, I might start pointing that out. That is another thing that that they don't seem to understand. All these things that, and I don't want to sound like I'm stereotyping here, but this is the way most gay people I know are, including myself. All the things that give us sort of personal comfort because of the way our brain works. Like, for example, when I was growing up, Barbies, or fashion when I got older. Those are produced by the marketplace, by the free market, by capitalists. Mattel made Barbie. That's the capitalist, institution. Fashion, the fashion industry, like you said, is free market. Well, I shouldn't use that term. It's sort of free market, because we don't really have a fully free market anywhere, but it's in the idea of a free market capitalist structure. And from my research, I actually don't believe fashion industry has any copyrights or anything like that. Most of it is actually first to market. I believe they do use trademark law, though, which is unfortunate.
Well, they do get angry when their stuff gets copied in China, but they really shouldn't, because anyone who really cares about this stuff and really has any sort of sense of self-worth wouldn't buy a $5 knockoff if, a lot of this stuff is about status, and it's about, as I'm sure you're aware. And again, I know a lot of gay people are really about that, what you're wearing, what make it is. And if you were caught as being buying some $5 knockoff from China, you'd probably be sort of looked down upon.
Probably, yeah. When you looked on as very good idea. They actually have, and again, the market comes up for a solution to that too, without needing to resort to the government, because you have stores. Oh, I can't think of the name right now, but there's this. I think what are they called? The stores that take in things like used clothes and things like that people.
Yeah, I forget the word too, but I'm sure everyone knows what you're talking about. Consignment shops and stuff like that.
Consignment shop. That's a market way of stopping the sort of knockoffs, because one of the things consignment shops do is before they even sell anything to anyone else, they usually have experts who come in and say, okay, this is really a Louis Vuitton, or this is really this or that, or whoever was supposed to make it. And you can tell because of the way it was made, or you can tell because there's the mark here. And there's market entities, other people in the market who come around and check things. And that's what I think everyone in this data stage actually doesn't realize, that within the market you have checks and balances. People who actually talk about the market and then use the term unregulated when we're talking about an unencumbered free market really probably should stop using that term, because an unencumbered free market has some more regulations than the state does, because you have lots of market entities that want to make sure that reputation, quality, all that sort of stuff is legitimate.
Yeah, you've got some really great insights, and that's why I also like to have a lot of diverse people on the show. We just went through a beautiful Young Female Anarchist Month, and they described anarchy from their perspective, and it was totally different than my perspective. And again, you are showing me different sides of ways I hadn't thought about the free market, so this is great. And for all the, if there's any gay people still watching at this point who aren't angry that we don't love the Democratic Party, it really is too bad that many do seem to be caught in that. Definitely they're not protecting you at all. They're just saying they're trying to protect you. Police don't protect you. If anything, if we had a really true free market, there wouldn't actually, I don't believe, would be a lot of bigotry and stuff like that. There'd be too many happy people going around. I think a lot of this stuff comes from schools, where they try to make us, public schools, of course, government schools, where they try to make us all into one and all become part of this one thing. And then if you're different.
Yep, that's true. I had no help from the government schools. From the time I was small until the time I got out of government schools, all I got was bullied, and more bullied. And believe it or not, the so-called teachers that were supposed to help, half the time they didn't do anything. I had one teacher when I was in grade 7 who said, "Oh, that's going to happen. You got to get used to it." They didn't try to stop it. They talked fairly nicely to the bullies to say, "Please stop doing it." But then they talked to me and said, "Well, that's going to happen. That's normal. Just expect to be ridiculed and laughed at and tripped and punched in the hall."
Wow. Yeah, I had a similar experience. I wasn't gay, but I was skinny and much smaller than everyone else. And yeah, I was just getting beat up all the time. And again, the sort of attitude was, well, yeah, you're just getting used to life now. Like, they're trying to get you ready for this life of being beaten up all the time. It's like, oh, this is the best system we got.
Yeah, well, a free market and education, well, along with everything else, would probably be the best thing. I don't know much about this unschooling stuff that's going around. I know I've heard a little bit about it, but I haven't really studied in depth. That sounds interesting. And also another thing that most people don't realize, homeschooling. Most people think homeschooling is for fundamentalist Christians and things like that, but in actuality, I actually went just to see for myself whether there was homeschooling that was secular or atheist or non-religious based. And if you actually just go into Google and type in secular homeschooling, there's like a whole bunch of links, and there's actually like 5 or 6 different brand names or groups that put out secular homeschooling material. And one of the things I found was they have middle school around grade 6, 7, 5, when you're just entering puberty and getting, maybe feeling weird urges. They actually have a course on GBLT issues and differences in orientation around grade 5, 6, 7 level, which I don't think you'd ever get in public school around here, basically explaining that some people are different, that if you feel a certain way towards a certain sex, that you're not wacko, and that sort of stuff, which I think looks great. They also have courses about civil rights movements, and they have stuff in their curriculum about the Stonewall riots from 1969, which I never learned anything about in my schooling. So it was really good to actually see that, in fact, the free market solution to public schools, homeschooling, actually, in some ways, if you go with the right program, because there is a lot of fundamentalist programs out there, but if you go with the right program, it actually has some stuff that public schools don't even have.
Yeah, there's a whole world out there. I've been discovering it because I'm sort of a new father lately, and been looking into all these things, and homeschooling is good. Unschooling is great. In the next few episodes, they haven't actually gone live yet. I've talked to a few people who unschool, and it's really, really interesting, and I think it's a really good thing that people should look at, especially anarchists and or even anyone of different orientations, because, like I said, in the public schools, they're trying to just make you all into one sort of big worker clump and just teach you to obey and stuff like that, which is just terrible. So I haven't seen you yet. We don't have the camera on right now, so I'm going to be seeing what you look like along with everyone else. So for all I know, you're dressed like Lady Gaga or something. But
no, I'm not dressed like Lady Gaga. I'm just for work. So when I'm done with this interview, I can just get to work.
Okay.
I just have a regular sweater on. I've got my favorite pink shirt underneath it, and I've got my lanyard for my stripe for work on it, which is bright pink. Pink is my favorite color, and it
Not surprised.
And it says "Call me Princess" around it because I found it at a dollar store and I just couldn't resist.
And judging by what you were saying earlier, that you grew up with Barbies and stuff, you told me it was hard coming out as being gay. Did you really have to come out, or was it kind of fairly obvious?
Actually, it was harder coming out as an anarchist than being gay because everyone actually knew I was gay from the time I was small. They didn't say anything. They left it up to me to figure out who and what I was, which I think is the good thing.
Yes.
But most people knew I was, I'm not sure how to word this because it's so PC these days, knew I was homosexual, gay, whatever you want to call it.
Well, that's the good thing about being an anarchist. We don't have to be politically correct because we don't believe in politics.
That's true. So yeah, I came out as, I came out the moment I was pretty much in my mother's womb, subconsciously. But yeah, it was more harder to come out as an anarchist actually than being gay. The person that was the hardest to come out to being gay to actually was my father, who still to this day actually doesn't really talk to me. He saw that I was more feminine than most boys were growing up, and he was fine with that. But then after I actually came out as not only being gender nonconforming, but also being homosexual, I've seen him a lot less since then, and I think that might be part of it. The last time he was here, because he doesn't live on the island, but the last time he was visiting, I have this pin that I got from when I was at the Pride Parade here, and there is one. Last time there was like 200 people there, which is a lot, very good for this island. But there, I have a pin that says, "Of course I can't think straight. I'm gay," and I think it's very cute and it's very accurate.
Yes,
and
I'll go ahead.
And the last time he was here, he told me to take the pin off because he didn't want me wearing it.
Well, that's too bad. That's really sad because, you know, he's got a son who believes in peace, who's nonviolent, who sounds like a great person, and the only reason that he doesn't like you is because, you know, you're not throwing a football around, and or I'm not saying he doesn't like you, but maybe he's scared or whatever his issues are. I have no idea what his issues are, but it is too bad. And hopefully maybe he'll see this video and wake up a little bit. And you know, if he had a son throwing a football around who believed in theft and violence at the state, he'd probably be happy with that. But you know, he's got to open his eyes a bit.
Well, I had an article actually. I had a website that's actually expiring soon because unfortunately I can't really afford to pay to renew it. But I had a website called murphreport.com, and one of the articles I put on there was how I'm actually proud to be a peace-loving sissy queer over a macho, aggressive-filled, violence-filled, macho, masculine straight boy.
Yeah, I appreciate you as well over people like that. As anarchists, we don't really, we believe we're all individuals, and we don't, all we really care is that people around us are more peaceful, and that's really what anarchy is all about. And for the last 3 gay people still watching, the anarcho-communist people aren't very peaceful, and that's why I'm not a big fan of them. And actually, I just think they're just communists. They're not really anarchists. They just glom onto the word like it's trendy.
That's pretty much true, because you can't really have an anarcho-communist or social society, because in order to become a pure communist society or social society, in order for the workers to literally own the means of production, that means that one class is literally owning everyone else, because the means of production is the people.
That's right. And so yeah, there's no such thing as anarcho-communism, but unfortunately some people still use it, and that's why we're trying to get out there and spread the word about true anarchy. You know, in a true anarchist state, and you can call it anarcho-capitalism, but in a true what I call anarchism, anarcho-capitalism, to me they're synonymous. And in our view of how the world could and should work, we would allow communism. If you want to have, we'd allow anything as long as you don't hurt anybody. So if someone wants to voluntarily join a commune, we'd have no problem with that. But in their version of anarchy, if we tried to own our own property, they would come and take it from us.
That's absolutely 10,000% accurate, because I have, as I said, I have lots of friends who are socialists, and some of them are almost as far left as you could say communists. And one of the things that I often tell them is that if you wanted to get together with other socialists or communist people under my world, if you were in the world I envision, you could do that, and we could still remain the best of friends, and you could have your little commune socialist community, and as long as you didn't come over and start attacking where I work, or my employer, or my business, I could travel to your commune and still hang out with you, and then leave and come back to where I live. As long as we're being peaceful, we don't have to segregate and cut off from each other, as long as they're not using violence against us.
Yeah, the best way to talk to an anarcho-communist that you meet is, as soon as they say they're anarcho-communist, just take their iPad right out of their pouch and start walking away, and they'll go, hey, and it's, oh, you get it now.
Yeah, that might work.
Yeah, it probably won't work. They don't really think. They're not very logical. But it's been great having you on, Chris. I don't know if you have anything else to say, but it's been a pleasure to have you on Anarchast.
Well, that's pretty much it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, and so that's another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.